We're going to talk about a really interesting study that I think this should be broadly cast to everybody for the sole purpose of, we talk about plastics, and I think there's plenty of people out there listening, and they're like, who cares? In some senses, because show me the negative effect they've actually had, and then I'll care a little bit more about plastics. So in Italy, God bless them, they did a study trying to basically discern. We have in vitro studies, which means like in a lab, doing this in vitro study where they can show with human cells or rats that there's all kinds of negative effects of plastics. It has negative effects on organs, inflammation. It can have impacts on endothelial cells. Those are the cells lining the vasculature from, the heart pumps through the vasculature. But so we don't have any really, at least at the time of the study, which I can't tell you the year it was done, but we didn't have any really good data showing some significant impact that those things that we see in the lab translate to actual bad outcomes or something happening to people. But Italy sought to say, let's see if we can do a study and potentially find some correlation here. So what they did is they took all these people that were lined up for a carotid endarterectomy, which is essentially the carotid artery runs up here. It's the place that you can feel in your neck pulsing whenever you're checking for a pulse on someone, or you can feel your own pulse, very easy.
So wait, these people, just this group of people had this situation.
So they had, remember we talked about atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. They had atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, atheroma.
Wonder why.
Fatty plaques here in their necks. We'll get there. It's multifactorial, but
right.
So these people, based on NASCAT criteria, which is sort of this gold standard of how we're perceiving what is beneficial, when it's time to cut into someone's neck and remove these plaques and patch them up versus not. And these were asymptomatic people. But so they figured out that they needed probably around 250 people to have the proper power to be able to really assess this. What they found in these 250 people that got their carotid plaques cut into and the plaque removed, they took the plaques out and they sent them in a glass jar. Didn't send it in a plastic jar.
A petri dish. In that glass?
So specifically, it says in the study that they actually put it, I think, in a glass test tube. So because you got to figure you threw it in a plastic. I'm sure you're going to find plastic in it because it was in a plastic petri dish. But so they put it in a glass tube and they send it off to a lab where they basically melt away all the human tissue. Don't burn it off, just melt it. High heat, no oxygen, so just human tissue melts away, and then we can see via gas chromatography and electron microscopy that there's plastics in these people's atheromas in their neck. It was just
sitting in the dish, the only thing left.
Dangling, dangling. All the tissue's gone.
And it was like,
and then you got sparkly plastic left behind.
Yeah.
It's small amounts, but it is 100% there. So I want to say maybe 40 parts per million. I don't know the actual metric in which they measure them out. It's a small amount, but it is still a quantitative amount that we can actually see. About 60% of people had these in their neck. Polyethylene is the number one. We talked about this last time.
Polyethylene.
Yeah, which we'll get back to.
And in clothing?
It can be in clothing. Your plastic Tupperware, your plastic bag that you put your sandwich in, your plastic bottle that you're drinking your water out of.
Darn.
Your
You're
plastic
screwed.
Bags. It's pretty ubiquitous. But so they find 60% of these people polyethylene. What they did is beautiful. For 3 years, they followed the patients who did not have any plastic in their neck, and 3 years of the people who did have the plastic in their neck.
And what happened?
60% of the people with plastic, 40% that did not have plastic. They follow these people out over the course of 3 years, and what do you think they find? And what they're looking for is, hey, if we found plastic in your carotid artery, are you more likely to have a heart attack, stroke, or die in the next 3 years? That was essentially the question they were asking. Because that would be a reasonable sort of, is there an association with plastics in your first? They obviously found cardiovascular disease with plastic inside of it, but now if we do find it, does that impose a risk to you? Yes.
Is there an association with plastic and aneurysms?
If you
you know how these random aneurysms happen?
So
I just got to add that to the list because that freaks me out.
When they follow the people out over basically 160% increase of heart attack, stroke, and death over the next 3 years. If you look at the data, which I'll probably take a picture and I'll show you, and you guys, everybody, go look this up. Don't take my word for it. This is Open Network JAMA. You can look at this article. Everybody can see it.
I Googled it when you texted me.
You can Google this article.
I read it myself.
It's incredible. But if you look at it, 166% increase of heart attack, stroke, and death in these people. But if you look at it, I don't know. I would have to look into the fine details. I don't think they looked at this. But if you look at it, you can see that the odds increase is increasing dramatically. So that if we probably followed these people, it's 166% over the course of 3 years. But if you look at the death rate of those post endarterectomy without the plastic, it looks very linear. As opposed to those with the plastics in there, you can see that
it's like the chart goes up like this.
Hyperbolic, yes.
Yeah, and hockey stick would be the stick.
So
in the little what's the bottom part of the hockey stick?
So the blade.
The blade.
Yeah.
I'm not a hockey player, so my favorite hockey player was Happy Gilmore. But anyways, talk about that.
I love hockey.
So yeah,
I won't jump off.
Adam is a hockey player. I've seen him in action.
I love hockey. It's one of the most amazing cardiorespiratory fitness sports on the face of the planet.
You look like you're wearing Carolina Hurricanes gear right now.
I'm not, but I'm a Carolina Hurricanes fan to the max. So, anyways, So the point is I think that if we would follow these people out, it would be even worse. I want to give a major sort of disclosure here in that the increased death rate, it's not causality. I'm not saying that the plastic itself, or we can't prove this from the study, but what we can show is there's a significant association with when we're finding plastic in your neck, you're much more at risk for deaths, heart attacks, strokes. And so, I don't know if you've ever heard someone talking about studies, because a lot of epidemiologic studies, they can show association, but they're not showing causation. But so, for example, let's say that if I look at and see a squirrel in my yard today, and we looked at everybody, and people were 75% more likely to die if they saw a squirrel in their yard. So the point of that is the squirrel didn't cause the death, but it should. If that's a pretty decent association, 75% of people were dying with the squirrel, whereas if they or 75, we'll say 100% increase of people who saw the squirrel died. The people who did not see the squirrel, did not die. The thing is there's probably something there. It might not have anything to do with the squirrel per se, but there probably is some connection. The fact that the timing is so close. So, from my perspective, in most simplest terms, is if this high association with this plastic, with heart attacks, strokes, and death, it's something that you simply, without ruining your life in any way, shape, or form, in fact, you'll quite make your life so much better getting away from the plastic. Even if it's not the causation, it's kind of like, I'm just not even going to play with that. I'm happy to try to limit the amount of plastic in my life. I think that it's not crazy expensive or difficult to make.
It's doable. It's a doable thing for, I think, anybody listening.
So the big thing that he talked about earlier, I don't know how many people listening have a reverse osmosis water system. You can get them, I want to say $300 maybe. $300 to $500 probably. You can spend, if you're doing whole house, you're going to spend a lot more.
Yeah, you are. You could be in an apartment or condo. You could be renting. You may not be able to do that.
Oh, that's true.
So there are devices out there that you can still get your hands on.
To anybody that's listening, I would love for you not to key up the whatever searches for YouTube by putting comments, but I would love for you to make a comment if you could engineer or tell people, if you're someone in an apartment, of maybe a way or a means that to be able to process your water so that you can sort of avoid these plastics. And the reason the reverse osmosis is so sort of invaluable, he talked about the Brita filters. It's probably not going to catch a lot of the other stuff too. Like PFAS will probably slip by some of the simple carbon filters, and they wear out so fast. Whereas RO is this membrane where it basically lets very minimal to anything through. And I would encourage, if there's some means, to be able to reverse osmose your water, even if you're in an apartment. But if somebody lives in an apartment and you have a means or way, put it in the comments, because it'd be helpful for some people. Because I would encourage,
definitely.
To me, it's a kind of like a way that you're going to spend money. You're trying to get the most bang for your buck. And I think that over the long haul, it's an upfront investment that it's not inconsequential, but I think that it's worth itself and pays major dividends. And it's a simple way of something that people could do to try to help limit their plastics in their life. So get your RO system, and then get your stainless steel water bottle, and get your stainless steel water bottle for your kids, and quit handing out and no hating on Sam's or Costco, whoever, but these like cheapo
Yeah.
junk plastic bottles that then get left in the car and get heated up. And it's just bad news bears. Stay away from this stuff.
Continue to click the link below and subscribe to the Desolate Health Podcast. Thank you for listening.